What's up guys, Woody here back with another new to Flesh and Blood video. And apologies that this one's slightly longer than I wanted to get out middle of last week, but unfortunately it wasn't very well. But we're back and we're now moving on to our class breakdown videos. And I've been really excited to bring these guys to you. So we've gone through the whole, what is Flesh and Blood and how do we play the game? And now it's a case of, well, choosing your class. And it's not a game that locks you into only playing one class. It's not like a game where you have to heavily invest financially and kind of time commitment to really understand the nuances, the mechanics, everything about a class. I wouldn't say it encourages you to shop and change, but it's much like any TCG. Having a solid understanding of archetypes and classes is only going to benefit you. But especially starting out, I recommend kind of choosing a direction and going down that route. If you enjoy it, great, stick with it. If you don't, hey, chop and change. It's up to you. And today we're looking at brutes. I'm really excited to bring these videos to you. As I said, they're really cool concepts, I think. That sounds a little bit arrogant because I'm making the concepts. But basically what we're going to be doing is in these videos, they're going to be about 20 to 25 minutes long. There will be very limited, if any, gameplay. They're more a case of what is the class? What does the class aim to do? What are the heroes of the class? What are the weapons available in the class? What are some key cards I recommend from the class? Both cheap and expensive. What's a good or a standard equipment loadout? What's an expensive equipment loadout? What are key combos, some tips, some deck building advice, all that kind of stuff about every single class in the game currently at the moment. I say every single class. I'm not going to be doing Shapeshifter or Merchant because there's not much to really do about them, especially for new players at the moment anyway. This video does include Monarch cards. I just wanted to point it out there because I know Monarch is only first edition out at the moment. But as of the 4th of June, Unlimited will be available pretty much worldwide. So, yeah, it'll be out there for people to kind of see and get their hands on. So Monarch will be actually more easily available than Crucible of War. And again, we're talking about Crucible of War cards in this video as well. Now, hopefully by the end of the video, my aim is that you can walk away from this and go, okay, I know exactly what I need to be trying to do with brutes. I know if that kind of class is for me. And then I also now, going forwards, how much it's going to cost me to kind of get into it. Because that's the main thing, right? Anyone watching this video who knows me from previous content will know I mainly do digital stuff. Going into the paper world, it costs you hard-earned cash. So I kind of want to get that point across there. How much is it actually going to cost for that hard-earned cash? Because it's kind of the elephant in the room people always ask when it comes to paper card games. How much is this deck going to cost me? Or how much to get competitive in this class? And I want to just be on the nose with that going forward straight away. But yeah, so let's kind of jump straight into brutes. So on the screen now, you can see there is we'll call it an infograph because that sounds like a fancy word that kids would use. And it's got three main things on there: complexity, fun, and costs. And this is just me. This is my personal breakdown of these three areas. So complexity of the brute class is, I've put around about a 6 out of 10. It's not the most complex deck or class in the game by any means. But it's not the easiest. There's a couple of decisions you need to make. And it's definitely new player friendly, I would say, over some of the other classes. But it's not a simple walk in the park, shall we say. In terms of fun, I find it, honestly, a lot of fun. It's not much feels, in my opinion, not much feels more fun in a card game when you can play these basic combos, but end up doing like damage that nearly equates to half of your opponent's health, especially if you're playing Blitz. Like that to me is fun. And for a new player, that's going to be fun. So that's why I put the fun around about a 7 out of 10. And it's pretty cheapish. You can see it's not the most expensive deck or class, I should say, because there are lots of decks available in a class. But it's not the most expensive class in the game by a long way. A competitive deck at the moment, this is not fully min-max competitive deck. This is like a good solid LGS competitive deck will cost you around about 120 to about 120 pounds, $150 at the moment. We get onto that as they go into it a little bit more. Now, pros and cons for brutes. Again, these are my personal opinions. They're cheap to make competitive. It's a very, very powerful single attacks with some buffs and all that. And it also has some really nice hand manipulation mechanics to really mess around with your opponent's hand for a keyword called Intimidate, which we'll get onto later on in this video. The cons, it can feel clunky, and that's by design. Brutes feel clunky by design. Why? Because if brutes felt cohesive and clean, brutes would be broken. They'd win every single game. It's as simple as that. If you could 10 damage off an Intimidator for 2 every single turn. In Blitz, your opponent would last no more than 3 turns. In CC, your opponent's probably not going to last much longer than 5, maybe 6 turns. And then the clunkiness kind of falls into, there's a lot of single attack turns. If you compare it to something like Ninja, where you're maybe attacking 5 times a turn, with Brutes, there are a lot of times you're attacking once, and then that's kind of your turn. And then just attacking once again, and then that's kind of your turn. Either due to the lack of go again, or due to the lack of resources available to pay for actions or cards as well. So, basic playstyle of Brutes. What are they trying to do? Everything in Brutes evolves around 6. The number 6. And more specifically, 6 attack damage. Now, we know on the bottom left-hand corner of a card, there is the little yellow symbol with a spear in it and has a number next to it. That is the base attack damage of a card. 6 is literally the magic number when it comes to Brutes. Now, if you're wondering about Shadow Brutes, I'll be doing a whole nother video on that another time. But it still is the case there as well. 6 is still the magic number. Now, they're kind of hero-centric. And I'm going to go on this. We'll get into heroes in a minute. I'm going to mainly be talking about Reinhardt today, because it's the main hero people will be running. Reinhardt is all about the keyword Intimidate. Now, what Intimidate does is if you discard a card with 6 or more base attack damage, then your opponent has to take a card from random and place it outside the play area for the turn. Meaning, let's say I've got 4 cards in my hand. I would shuffle my cards. I'd say to my opponent, choose a card. They chose the second from the left. I would turn it over, place it at the side of my playmat, and I couldn't pick that card up again now until my opponent's end phase. So only then would I pick it back up for the start of my turn. Now, what that does is your idea is you're trying to intimidate 1, sometimes 2, if you're lucky, 3 times a turn to just get your opponent to put this down. So when you're doing these big attacks of 6, 7, 8, 9, I mean, I've had attacks of up to 12 coming over the top from Brutes. They've only got 1, maybe 2 cards in hand to block with and their equipment. So you're trying to exhaust their equipment early for them to prevent damage. You're trying to exhaust the handout. There is an element of RNG in terms of maybe you get them to put a card to the side that is a defense reaction card. Now they have to block with their cards they were going to use next turn to attack, and next turn you get a free pass on them. Like, there is an element of RNG to that. But that all feeds into Brutes as a class, as an archetype. It's what they're trying to do. They are RNG-centric, but it's that clunkiness that when it comes together, my God, they are powerful and they are very, very spicy. But they're also really, really fun to play. And Intimidate is literally your friend. That is the main focus of a Brute list, is that 6+ base attack power, Intimidate, big attack. That's it. Like, if we were to talk in Brute language, it would be like, me scare opponent, me hit opponent, me win. That would basically be the Brute language of what you're trying to do. So heroes, let's throw the heroes up on the screen now. You can see Reinhardt, who I have just mentioned, with the main ability there being that if you discard a card of 6 or more base attack this turn, Intimidate. And then we got KO. KO is a bit more of an interesting one, which has even more RNG embedded into them. But KO is only a Blitz hero. Also, you'll notice KO's got 19 life. And Reinhardt is available for Blitz, being at 20 life, and for Classic Constructed at 40 life as well. Reinhardt is the main hero you'll be using for now, I'd imagine. KO is from Crucible of War, so most people won't even have access to KO. But KO can be fun. There's one way of kind of neutralizing the RNG a tiny bit for one turn with a piece of equipment that we can talk about later on. But the main part is KO is more fun, I would say, at the moment. Don't get me wrong. I've played against KO when they've won in like 3 turns. I think 2 turns, actually, because they got lucky on their high rolls, and it was just like, okay, you're just attacking me now for 15 damage. What do I do? 16 damage. What do I do? I have no idea. So yeah, it can be pretty intimidating. No pun intended. But yeah, they're the 2 heroes that are available at the moment. Now, going across to weapons, there are 3 weapons available as of now. For Brutes, the most recent one came with the Monarch release a couple of weeks ago. So Romping Club is the OG weapon. It's vanilla Reinhardt's weapon. It's the club you can see. It's okay. It's not a great weapon, if I'm being honest. Most people will be using it as it's just very easy to access. It's everywhere. If you buy it, it costs about a penny because it's a token. If you probably buy 4 packs, you'll probably pull one somewhere. Like, It's it's a fine. It's absolutely fine, and that is it. It plays into Reinhardt's abilities. You can see with the discarded card, extra power and all that. But it's not that good, really. It's quite clunky, and it's more there as a second attack. If for some reason you can't play a card because you can't discard a card or anything like that, the club's more there as a second attack. We go on to Mandible Claws in a minute because I want to spend a bit more time speaking about those. The Ravenous Meat Axe came in with the Levia Shadow Brute release. It's not a Shadow Brute weapon. It is a Brute weapon, so you can use it on Reinhardt and KO if you wanted to use it on KO. It's better than the club, in my opinion. I've only played of it once, I should say. But from what I've played of it, it did feel better than the club. It felt less resource heavy, and I mean that by the fact that I got to draw a card, and it gave me the discard mechanic straight away. So if I had no other way of proccing that, I had that off of the Meat Axe, which instantly played into Reinhardt more so. So the Meat Axe, I would say, in my opinion, is better than the club. Obviously, if you've got different playstyles going on, as more cards become available, maybe the club kind of makes a bit of a surging comeback from the depths of clubbish hell. I'm going on tangent now. So yeah, they're the two kind of token cheapish weapons, shall we say. Now, Mandible Claws, they shouldn't be expensive because they're only rare cards. However, they're Crucible of War rare cards at the moment, meaning that they're limited availability. People are charging silly prices for these cards at the moment. There's no set release date on Unlimited Crucible of War. Mid of the year is what we're hearing. I think probably end of July, beginning of August would be a great time to release Unlimited Crucible of War. Once Unlimited Crucible of War comes out, honestly, you pick these cards up for about £2 to £3 a card. And you do need two. Notice they are one-handed weapons. And also, why do you need two? Because these guys are the singing stars of a Brute list. They are incredible. They are amazingly, amazingly strong. A real key important thing to note from these they are independent cards, meaning the abilities are read independently. So if you just discard one card with 6 or more base attack, they both gain go again because they read it individually. You don't need to discard a card for each claw. Both claws gain go again because they read them independently. So you can see why they're so strong. Discard one card, you get Intimidate from Reinhardt. You attack once for 1 resource. 3 damage is not to be snuffed at because if you go, I'll take that, and then you attack again for another resource, I'll take that, and then all of a sudden you're attacking again because to go again from the discarded card, this time for like 7 damage, well, that is potentially going to be 13 damage in 1 turn. And I potentially have intimidated once or twice as well. So I'm very limited of how much I block. So you can see why the claws are incredibly powerful. And if you can get your hands on them now, you're probably looking at about, from what I've seen, about £8 to £10 a card at the moment. But I promise you, once Unlimited Crucible War comes out, they'll drop down to £2 to £3 a card. Maybe even cheaper than that. So yeah, there are. I would hold off on them for now, is what I'm saying. And let's go across to some equipment because I want to spend some time on the equipment. Equipment's a tough one. It's kind of subjective. Remember, this is a new to Flesh and Blood video, so I'm not going to be talking about why this equipment or that equipment or any other equipment. I haven't included much Arcane Barrier here, mainly because I don't want to confuse people on that. I mainly want to talk about Brute stuff and Brute stuff available here. Now, for those who don't know anything about Arcane Barrier is a keyword on equipment that allows you to block arcane damage. It's very important if you're playing anything like playing against anything like Runeblade or Wizard. Otherwise, it's pretty useless because you're not taking any arcane damage. But light as well now. So Prism does arcane damage as well. Anyway, so let's go on to the equipment. And kicking off first with the head. So first bit of head is the Skullhorn. Skullhorn's it's a Brute piece of equipment. It came in Crucible of War. It is a Majestic. At the moment, it's too expensive. Do not even think about buying this card at the moment. Wait for Unlimited. I've seen it priced around 30, 40 quid at the moment. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It will come down to 10 to 15 pounds once Unlimited is out. That'll probably be a price it sits at. It's a very, very good piece. For them, if you can't, obviously, at the moment I'm saying don't buy that. If you can't afford that even, or you don't want to spend 10, 15 pounds on a card, another good one is Hope Merchant's Hood. Hope Merchant's Hood isn't an amazing card, don't get me wrong. It doesn't give you any defense. However, it does let you reshuffle or redraw your hand. Now, why that's important, as we've already established, Brutes are a little bit clunky. And if you don't get a very good draw with them, you can have a really bad turn, especially if your opponent's on the ropes. You want to get that draw that's going to really like put the edge of the sword on them, right? Really take them to the edge. If you don't get that draw and it's a slow turn, it gives your opponent a chance to kind of get their breath back, rebuild themselves, and come back at you. And we don't want that. So that's why Hope Merchants has, in my opinion, pretty good in Brutes, especially as a cheap piece, because it allows you to go, okay, I could find lethal this turn. These cards aren't going to do it. I'm going to put these cards back. I'm going to draw these cards here, or even bump and say, okay, my next Brute attack's going to do 2 damage. I've got to discard 1. I'm going to put these 2 cards back and just try and find something off the top 2 that is going to let you find that lethal off the buff you've already done on the board with the action card. Now, chess pieces. Again, I'll stick with commons here for now. I'll get onto a legendary in a second, but the Barkbone strapping is a brute piece of equipment. It lets you roll a 6-sided dice. You roll a 6, basically, you gain 3 resource points. You roll a 2, a 5, you gain 2 resource points. You roll a 3, you gain like 1 resource point. You get what I mean now. It basically gives you resource points, which can be really important. It is, again, RNG. It is a case if you roll a 1, you don't get any resource points. You roll a 2, that's still not bad because you're still gaining 1 resource point for free. And that can sometimes be all you need. There are some of the attack actions in Brutes are most of them are 2 to 3 cost. But however, the blue cards don't have the 7 base damage. So the issue by running blue cards just to pitch means that, well, actually these blue cards now mean that I'm going to be potentially discarding cards with 5 damage, so I'm not going to get that. So you have to really weigh it up. So there's a lot of yellow cards in there you're running that have obviously offer 2 resources. So having that 1 extra resource from something like the Barkbone strapping, even if it is just a 1 extra resource, is really, really important to help you find those big turns. Or the Hearten Cross Strap is another way. Imagine it's not giving you the resource points, it's just removing them from the next attack, which is, it's guaranteed 2 almost. So I would almost run this over the Barkbone on the odd occasion because it's just, I can destroy it and then go, okay, my next attack is now free. If it was 2 cost card, it's now free. The issue is you have to use it on an attack action card, so you're limited. Whereas on the Barkbone strapping, you can use that on anything you want to, basically. So you don't have as much freedom by using the Hearten Cross Strap. Now I'm going to quickly mention Feandor's Spring Tunic. It's a very expensive legendary piece of card. At every turn, you tick up a dice. When it gets to 3, you get a free action point, basically. It's currently about £150 as a card. About £120, about $150, $160. It goes up and down quite a lot. Do you need this card? I see a lot of people saying you must have it in Brutes. If you're playing Blitz, no, not really, because chances are you're maybe going to get 1 free resource off it the whole game. That is it. Do you need to be spending 150 quid to get that extra resource? Probably not, no. In CC, yeah, it's a very strong card. However, people have won without it. So do not look at a list and think, wow. Because every Brute list you look at online will be running Tunic. Do you know why? Because they can do that online. They don't have to own it to be able to pull it in their list and go, oh, look, I can play this on Tabletop Simulator. So, yeah, do not worry about Spring Tunic. It's a very good card. It's not a must-have. It is not a must-have. If you want to go play Grand Prix and compete at the highest level in Flesh and Blood, then yeah, it's going to be a needed card. If you just want to play with some friends or go down your LGS and have some fun and even win LGS events, you don't need this card. It's as simple as that. Okay? Then going on to the arms. The cheap one here I'll go with is Goliath Gauntlet. It's nice and easy. You can destroy it and you get 2 extra base power onto your next attack action card. Simple as that. It's nice and easy. It gives you a bit more damage output. Brutes are very much about kind of pushing your opponent and pushing your opponent and pushing your opponent and pushing your opponent, going at them and going at them and going at them and going at them and really intimidating them. Like, again, no pun intended, but you're trying to intimidate them. Having that extra 2 base damage on the card can be really big. And then going across to Gambler's Gloves. Now, I'm just going to throw a mention to these guys. They're not a must. People will run them again online because, hey, they can, because they don't have to drop the money for them, although they're only expensive at the moment because it's Crucible of War. Gambler's Gloves basically let you re-roll a 6-sided dice that you've rolled this turn. So basically, if you roll it, you get bad RNG. You roll a 2, and you're like, oh, I'm going to re-roll that, and you roll a 4. Cool, they've got that value, right? But you have to destroy them to do that. You don't need the Gambler's Gloves. People will run them in lists. You don't need them. It's as simple as that. Yes, they're good. If you want to, again, go Tour Grand Prix and all that, but probably they're going to be good in brutes because it gives you a chance to negate some RNG, especially in something like a KO list that is going to be hyper aggressive. Other than that, you don't really need them. And then going on to the legs. The Iron Rot legs is all I'd go with, to be honest, for brutes. Main reason being because the rest of the armor I've mentioned, or you can see on the screen now, doesn't have block, doesn't have any armor to actually block or negate damage or attacks. So it leaves you a little bit open in terms of blocking from hand. So the Iron Rot legs, nice simple, it's just one block. It gives you a nice, easy one block. Now, I'm going to be doing this in every video because every class does have a legendary piece of equipment, which one of my biggest irritating things about Flesh and Blood is how some of the community are very bad at introducing new players. And what I mean by that is, so let me finish up here, is the fact that they say to people, oh, you must have this legendary. You need the legendary piece of equipment. That's absolute nonsense. It's bullshit. You don't need it, to be honest. Some classes are more dependent on their legendary piece of equipment than others. It's nice to have. It's flavoursome to have. It's playful to have. It plays into your deck very nicely. You don't have to have it. They're expensive cards, basically. So on every video on this, every class breakdown, I'm going to be mentioning the legendary piece of equipment, and I'm going to be scoring it out of 10 on how important in this deck it is. Now, do not see that as me going, you must go buy this if I give it a 9 out of 10. I'm just saying that if you want that deck to really sing, you need that legendary piece of equipment. Some of them were like a 5 out of 10, meaning that, honestly, I wouldn't even waste your money. Brutes is honestly, so the Scabskin Levers is about a 7 out of 10. It is very, very good. What it does is it again allows you to roll a dice and it gives you additional action points. Now, a lot of the cards, as we mentioned earlier, are quite clunky in terms of you don't get go again much. We saw the claws give you go again, but none of the actual cards really give you go again. The odd exception here or there. What this allows you to do is it really allows you to push for lethal or push to really get your opponent's hand exhausted by giving you the action points to be able to like spend them to attack once and attack again and attack again and attack again. And yeah, you still need the resource points to pay for the cards, but it gives you the action points as well. So it's not very important, but it is a very good piece of equipment in a brute list. I can't deny. It's a good card. It's 7 out of 10 for me. Price wise, it's probably at the moment it's sat around about £65, around about $90. Now's probably a good time to get it because it's pretty cheap if you wanted to get it. When I first started playing the game, it was sat around 120 quid, but it is coming down. If brutes all of a sudden get good, it goes flying up. If brutes all of a sudden become good in classic constructed, you can expect to see Scabskin Levers being around about 120 to 130 quid. Easy. Now going on to some key cards. So I've gone for equipment, I've gone through weapons, some key cards. I'm just going to fly through these cards. I'm not going to spend ages going through every single individual card. You can see them on the screen and I'll bring up some ones that I want to talk about. But the key cards, I would say for now, the cheap key cards, I would say for now, are going to be Reckless Swing, Sand Sketch Plan, which I'm going to come back to in a second, the Breakneck Battery, the Savage Feast, the Barraging Big Horn, and the Pulping as well. So going back to the Sand Sketch Plan, it's a Rhinar Specialization card, which allows you to search your deck for a card, put it into your hand, discard a random card, and shuffle your deck. If the discarded card is 6 or more, gain 2 action points. So it's a free cost card. It's completely, it doesn't cost mana to play. You can pitch it for free, which is also a very big utilization of this card as well. It's a tutor card, and it gives you action points. So what we said a minute ago about the Scabskin Levers being 75 quid, this card will cost you around about £3, £2 to £3. If that, that's a high-end price. Probably more looking like £2, 150 to 2 quid for this card. This card is an absolute must in a Rhinar list. It's a very, very good card. That tutor's huge because it allows you to maybe set up something next turn by playing that card you got into your arsenal at the end of the turn, or it allows you to, if you get the go again, to do something really, really big at the end of the turn. Maybe it's an Alpha Rampage, for example, which we're going to look at in a minute. And it's a really big attack at the end of the turn. And the other card I want to go to is Breakneck Battery. Now, you notice this is a red card. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier. If we played it in yellow or blue, it will be 5 or 4 attack, respectively. However, we need the red because it's 6 attack. But as an additional cost to play, Breakneck Battery discard a random card. If the discarded card has 6 or more attack, breakneck battery gains go again. And that's exactly what we're kind of talking about earlier, that there's not many cards that have to go again, but cards like this are huge. So you discarded a card, they're down to 3 cards in hand from the Intimidate. You're attacking with breakneck battery, they're blocking with a card from hand, they're down to 2 cards in hand. It gains go again. You play Sand Sketch Plan, you pull something out, you then attack with an Alpha Rampage if you have the resources somehow to do this, and all of a sudden, you're now attacking for 9 damage next turn. After you already attacked for 6, they've got 2 cards in hand to block with. They're going to start exhausting their equipment. This is what I mean by brutes starting to get scary and, again, no pun intended, intimidating. And then going on to the Barraging Big Horn. Now, it's a Crucible of War card. It's not too expensive. You can pick it up for about £1.50, £2 roughly. It will come down cheaper, to be honest, once the Unlimited is out. But again, it's another card. It gains that go again if they don't block it. So you're forcing blocks from their hand. You're forcing cards out of their hand, and you're again intimidating them. You're putting your opponent into a sticky situation with this card. Now, this one can be played in yellow, and I recommend it playing in yellow because it gives you 2 pitch, which you need these resource points to pay for these cards. And it also still does 6 damage. The red one does 7 damage, believe it or not, but the blue one goes down to 5. So you're instantly losing that element of guaranteeing you discarding a 6 base attack card. Now going on to the expensive cards that I recommend, or key cards, shall we say. Now we've got Alpha Rampage. All these are Majestics, I should say as well. Alpha Rampage, which will cost you around about £7 a card at the moment, around about $10. It's a very, very good card. It's one I recommend. Now remember, if you're playing Blitz, you only need 2 of. If you're playing CC, you need 3 of. It's a very, very good card though. Blood Rush Bellows is an absolute bonkers card. I cannot explain to you how strong this card is. It's the reason why it's £12 roughly at the moment, $15 if you was to buy it individually. Then we've got Massacre. Now this card is too expensive at the moment. I don't recommend it right now, mainly because it's a Crucible of War card again. This card is currently sat around 25 to 30 quid as a single card. Once Unlimited comes out, I expect it to drop around about £7 to £10. So I'd wait for that. And then Tear Limb from Limb is a Monarch card. This card again is absolutely spice central. You basically discard a card with 6 base attack. You attack with a card with 6 base attack. Oh, look, you're now doing 12 damage, as well as the Intimidate, as well as the double Intimidate, actually, because of Rhinar. So double Intimidate, 12 damage, 2 cards in hand. Good luck blocking that. Good luck blocking that. Like, that's the kind of craziness that brutes can do. And cards like Tear Limb from Limb can do as well. Tear Limb from Limb, at the moment, it's slightly more expensive because it is a Monarch First Edition, is the only way of getting hold of it at the moment. So you are looking at probably spending around about £20 on it at the moment, maybe £15 to £20. Once Unlimited comes out for Monarch, which is in 2 weeks' time, pretty much, 2 or 3 weeks' time, then you'll be getting it for probably around about, I'm going to say a tenner, £10 to £12, $14 to $15 is what I'll say on that one there. And those are the kind of the key cards. Now, I've got some example decks below. By all means, feel free to head down there and check out these example decks. They are, they have two available. One is a budget deck, which will cost you around about £15 to make. About £12 to £15, $20 maybe. It only has rares and super rares as the maximum rarity. It doesn't go anything higher than that. It doesn't have the Mandible Claws, I'm afraid, in there as well. And then I've got not a super high tier min-maxed Brute list, but I've got a competitive Brute list down there as well. This will cost you about £120, $150 if you used to buy it all individually as well. And this one you could easily turn up to your LGS with and be pretty scary and do a lot of damage at your LGS with this kind of deck. So going on to key combos. This is going to sound bad when I say this, but there isn't any real key combos with brutes, and I don't mean that horribly or any disrespect to them as a class, but they kind of speak for themselves. It's all about discarding that 6 cost card, 6 base power attack card to get the Intimidate, to then Intimidate again, to then do big damage. It's as simple as that. A lot of the cards kind of clip together like mini jigsaw pieces anyway to help you do that. So there's no set, you should play this card followed by this card like there is in other classes. It's just more a case of how can I do the most damage possible with the cards I have in hand? That's basically what you're trying to do with brutes. One thing I will say on that though is decision making is very important, because a lot of the cards will have a kind of a subtext to it or a side text to it saying that you, in an additional cost to play this card, you must discard a card. If you only have that card in your hand, you can't play it. All text has to be met on your card. It's not you may discard a card. It is, as an additional cost to play this card, you must discard a random card. So you have to discard a random card. Also make sure that if you can get any cards that don't have 6 base attack power in your hand, out of your hand, either by bumping first, by buffing first or anything like that, to try to get them out of your hand to mean that you're not got a chance of your opponent choosing a card that isn't going to give you that buff of 6 attack, then that's kind of the main thing for it. So the combos are making sure you're discarding cards with 6 base attack power or more. And going on to tips, one of the big tips I want to share with brutes is utilize your arsenal. I know it sounds crazy. Brutes are about big turns. They're about not so much building up to big turns like Guardians, but they're about these big, powerful attacking turns. You're about disrupting your opponent. With the Intimidate, what you want to be doing is, you want it so when it comes to your opponent's turn, obviously they don't draw cards until the end of their turn. They've only got 2 cards in hand, and they're cards that they don't want to play, or that they can't play, or that they've been disrupted because they were intimidated and they couldn't block with them last game. That's what you want to be doing. So you want to be attacking a lot. You want to be very aggressive. The idea of brutes is, the longer the game goes on, the chances are you're probably going to end up falling a little bit behind, because you're going to be burning through your discards, the resources, you're going to be destroying your equipment, and then you're going to start falling down, because your equipment combos in brutes are what really allow you to kind of get the big attack going by destroying your equipment or popping your equipment to get cheaper cards or create action points or resource points. If you can't do that because you've already done it, then it gets even clunkier and it can be harder. So you want to be aggressive from the get-go, really at their face, and trying to get as much damage down as possible. And you want it so when it comes to their turn, the ideal turn on their turn against brutes is when they go Arsenal, draw 4, pass turn. That's you going, yes, I've done my job. I mean, you go back at them, intimidate them, get cards out of hand, and they're back at going, I attack you for 1. Yeah, do you know what? I'll take that 4. The next turn, it's back at them again. You're attacking them for 9, 10s, intimidating them. That's what you want to be doing. Constantly at them and at them and at them. Don't let them up. If you get a bad draw or bad sequence of draws in brutes, it can be devastating because you don't have that pressure to put on your opponent. If you give them just 1 turn breathing space, they can easily just come back at you. And then another thing, as I'll point out, the deck building tip is going to be, don't add too many blues in there, because the blues don't give you 6 base attack damage. Not all blues do anyway. I don't think there's any blues that give you 6 base attack damage. And that's going to really hinder you if you end up discarding that card. Resource management is really hard in brutes. Really hard. Because by the time you discarded cards and pitch cards, you normally only have 1 card in hand left to attack with anyway. And if that requires you to discard a card, you can't play it. So you need to, in your head, know the sequencing and know your resource management, and build up to these turns, as I said earlier, by maybe going, okay, this is a free cost card, Alpha Rampage. Maybe I'll put this into my arsenal, and next turn, okay, I can pitch my yellow. I can pitch 2 yellows. It gives me 1 floating, and I can attack, and maybe that's why I give and go again. And that's what I mean. You're kind of building up to these turns by managing in your head, okay, what resources do I need? Where am I going to find these resources from? How am I going to exhaust them all at once to just go bang and really disrupt your opponent's hand? That's what you want to be doing with brutes. And that's going to wrap up this video, guys. It's yeah, I love talking about Flesh and Blood. I absolutely love bringing these videos to you guys. Please let me know what you think to them, because it's a new video series for me. Do you find it useful? As a new player, do you now go, do you know what? I kind of understand brutes. I feel like I understand what I want to be doing with brutes. Please let me know, because I only want to make these videos better for you guys. Next up, we're going to be looking at Warrior and Dorinthia deck, and talking about Warrior and how you play Warrior, and kind of break down the Warrior class as well. But anyway, have a great day, morning, evening, whatever it is, wherever you guys are. Stay safe, take care, have fun, and until next time, goodbye.